Voting is the most precious right of every citizen, and we have a moral obligation to ensure the integrity of our voting process. These wise words were said none other than by Hillary Clinton. Because I agree with the use of voting machines, I stand resolved that society is benefiting from using technologically advanced systems to count the votes of all citizens. Voting machines is defined as a machine for the automatic registering of votes from Oxford dictionaries. The value of my case is to be able to appreciate the opportunity and to be able to use these machines instead of having to hand count every single vote. To appreciate is defined as to recognize the full worth of something. The importance of this debate is that people complain about the elements our country is fortunate to have, and when other places they are not even near close to being as blessed as we are. Many complain that voting machines cause some votes to be lost, but there is also a possibility of those votes being lost when they are hand counted. People need to begin to appreciate how fortunate they are when it comes to the technology they are fortunate to have. My first contention is the improvement of the voting process. Through the use of voting machines, the voting process is improved, which has led for a more successful and more accurate result in votes. If electronic voting systems are not in place to count the votes, then it will need to be done manually. If everyday people are counting the votes, then there will always be a percentage for error. No matter how many times of being recounted, there could always be some votes that are not accounted for, because people are humans and humans make mistakes. There should be no mistake when it comes to the votes of American citizens. The ElectroVote 2000 began being used and is still used in many elections today. It allows for voters to be able to have an easier time seeing the screens in a more secure voting process. During the presidential election of 2000, this was against George Bush and Al Gore. The country seemed to be at a standstill because the presidential election was decided between 1,700 votes in Florida, and those votes needed to be recounted. At this time, Florida used hole-punching ballots, which many people argued that the ballot was confusing and charges that the design causes an abnormally high number of votes for Buchanan in one county the ballot was used, and it calls for a revote in one populous county were eventually denied on November 20th. Now, one reason these votes had to be recounted is because of the military overseas. And in my opinion, the men who are overseas fighting for our right to vote deserve more right to vote than anybody else. And this was noticed, and it was implemented with the Military Overseas Voters Empowerment Act. And people who are in our military are able to cast their vote electronically, which makes receiving their votes much easier and much more time efficient. The federal government has mandated certain requirements to be in check before the voting process actually occurs, which allows for a successful vote. The Help Americans Vote Act changed the voting process, and George Bush enacted this after the 2000 presidential election. This was the first law to address the voting process in the United States, and it mandated that there would be no longer the punch card voting system. It also established the Electronic Assistance Commission, also known as the ECA. The ECA was created for developing guidance to meet HAVA requirements, adopting voluntary voting system guidelines, and serving as the national clearinghouse of information on electronic administration. The ECA also accredits testing laboratories and certifies voting systems, as well as audits the use of HAVA funds. The ECA is known to send their voting machines off to their certified laboratories, and they do different tests on the machines to make sure that all machines are effective for the voting process. Now, I'm sure a lot of people wonder, how do we keep making sure these voting machines are still up to time? And the quality monitoring program makes sure of that, and Maddy makes sure that all machines are being certified and remain certified. And the machine is no longer certified, they let the ECA know, and then the ECA sends out a report that these machines are no longer allowed to be used. Now, this is not mandatory that all states do this, but 35 states do the ECA's testing, but 20 do not. Alaska is one of these, but also our little hometown of West Virginia is one. West Virginia has 18 minimum requirements to use when they go to their voting machines. And the main focus of all of these is to keep the votes of the voter a secret and not to allow others to access this information. Now, Alaska has 4, and Alaska's involve The State Ballot Counting Review Board is responsible for certifying initial logic and accuracy tests of the AccuVote counting program and memory cards. So when you listen to like all of these, they all come together with one idea to make sure the voting security is maintained. The use of all electronic voting machines allows for each and every voter to feel that their vote is being accounted for and that their votes will not be revealed to the public. This is allowed through the Electronic Election Assistance Commission, which was formed through the Help America Vote Act. Many people believe that since these machines are electronic, that not only are they unreliable, they have mechanical issues and votes have to be recounted in the long run anyway. This opinion is not valid because the ECA has standard tests that each voting machine has to undergo for it to be certified. Although not all states use these federal tests, to be specific, each state that does not participate has their own set of requirements that they use to test the voting machines.
You're on your 20.
I'm under 20.
That was your time.